Hi, I'm Taylor McLean, and this is Taylor Your Reality. I've been binge watching Parks and Rec, which, if you've never watched the show, you're definitely missing out. It's absolutely hilarious. It's on Peacock, not sponsored by them, but I'm just throwing that out there. It's a great show, and there's this kind of running bit in the show of treat yourself. You may have heard of it if you've watched the show. Treat yourself is basically the day where you go out and you buy yourself something nice and you spoil yourself a little bit because you work hard and you deserve it. And so we decided, okay, let's have ourselves a little treat yourself day. We'll go have a couple, nice meals. We will go and buy ourselves something nice, treat ourselves. So, first stop, we go to this little coffee kiosk, one of our favorite spots for some warm coffee, and he orders the drinks. Now, I could tell that the waitress was messing up his order. In fact, she even asked him at one point for clarification, and he just quickly says yes. And he's the one in the driver's seat, so he can see in real time that she's messing up his drink. But he didn't say anything. And I think maybe it was because there was a lot of cars in line. I don't know. But he didn't advocate for himself. He just said yes. He paid for the coffee. We drive off, and he's like, damn, this isn't what I wanted. I wanted a hot coffee, and she gave me a cold brew, yada, yada, yada. And I could see him getting upset, like physically starting to get irritated with the moment that had just transpired. And I told him, all right, let's not ruin the day. It's okay. We'll keep moving forward. It'll just get better. So we go and we take turns picking shops that we want to go walk around in until I start getting hungry. So I suggest we go to Olive Garden. Now, Olive Garden, if you live under a rock and you've never heard of Olive Garden, it is a chain restaurant of Italian food. It's not exactly a five-star restaurant, but definitely better quality than, say, a McDonald's. And I love their breadsticks and their chicken gnocchi soup, so I was really craving it. We go to the Olive Garden. The hostess seats us in the back, off to the left, and as soon as we walk past the bar and we start getting into the seating area, I smell what I can only describe as months worth of grime. Okay? Like, it just smelled dirty, like the carpets themselves needed to be washed. Immediately, that's a red flag. And I probably should have just turned around and walked out. But I didn't. I stayed. We go to the back, we get seated, sit down. I look over at the wall next to me at the booth, and there's crayon scribbled on the walls. So that should have been red flag number two. But again, it wasn't. I really wanted that chicken gnocchi soup. Our waiter comes over, hands us our menus, asks to take our order, and I'm not gonna lie, I could smell him coming before he got to the table. It was rough, y'all. Like, he had greasy hair and just BO. But he was being polite and professional, so I was like, okay, maybe he's just working really hard. I'm not gonna say anything. He brings us our drinks, brings out the soup and salad, and the salad was good, but the breadsticks were hard, and my soup, like, the chicken in it tasted like canned chicken. It just was not good quality. So I'm at this point I'm just disappointed. I'm still waiting for my manicotti to come out, and me and Tyler, we're having a good conversation. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters is good company. But this is treat yourself day, okay? So he comes back, brings the manicotti. I take one bite, and it's disgusting. Like, I don't know what it was. The cheese just tasted gross. So I scooted it over to Tyler and I was like, am I tripping here? Like, because sometimes if I'm in a bad headspace and something irritates me, it just ruins the day for me. And I wanted to make sure that's not what was happening. So I scooted it over to him. Tyler takes a bite and he's like, no, this is gross. So we kind of just shoved that off to the side and we're finishing up with our breadsticks and soup. The waiter comes back and he notices that we have shoved our food off to the side and he goes, oh, is there something wrong with this? Do you want me to take it off your receipt? Like, everything okay? And Tyler just kind of nervously laughs and he goes, "No, it's fine. Like, can you just get us a box? Like, I'm gonna eat it later." And at that point, I just couldn't take it anymore. I interrupt Tyler and I go, "He's being nice. He's just being nice. It wasn't very good. I didn't like it. Can you take it off the receipt?" And the waiter just kind of nods and goes, "Yep, not a problem." He grabs the food and walks off. And in that moment, I could see the stress just melting away from Tyler's face. That moment wasn't necessarily about the food, right? It was about something bigger. I did not want Tyler to walk out of that restaurant again, shoving down how he really felt, being disappointed, especially not on a day when we are literally trying to celebrate ourselves and have fun. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about people pleasing. And I love my husband to death, and I promise you that I got his permission to share these stories. But my husband's totally a people pleaser, and it's something that he is consciously working on. It's something that I have already been breaking out of the habit of being because he and I both have just big time been people pleasers. And I think like the heart line of this podcast, of Tailor Your Reality, is learning how to cultivate a life that actually feels like you. And you can't do that. There's no room for people pleasing and also being true to yourself, right? So I'm going to tell you what the definition of a people pleaser is. We're going to get into some reasons why people become people pleasers and go over some ways that we can work on breaking those habits. And by the way, if you are a big time people pleaser and you feel a little bit called out by something that comes up in this episode, I just want to preface maybe you're in the right place, okay? Don't be afraid of facing yourself. That's why my logo's got a big old mirror, okay? Sometimes we need to face ourselves so that we can grow and be the best versions of ourselves. And I'm not talking about nothing that I haven't done or faced or experienced myself, okay? Like I said, I am recovering from being a people pleaser. I am retiring. It does not serve me, and I promise it does not serve you either. So, what is the definition of people pleasing? People pleasing is a pattern of prioritizing others' comfort, approval, or emotions over your own needs, preferences, or boundaries, often at your own expense. So here's a few traits of a people pleaser: difficulty saying no, avoiding conflict at all costs, over apologizing, downplaying your needs, agreeing outwardly while feeling resentment internally. And I would like to point out there's an important distinction between being kind and being a people pleaser. Kindness is a choice. People pleasing is fear driven. That scene at the restaurant, my husband, he is afraid of hurting other people's feelings. That's why he would rather get a box, take the meal home, throw it away, pay for it, than have to tell the waiter that it was gross. And that's why I felt the need in that moment to step in and just be like, no, nope, absolutely not. Why? Because I care about my husband and I did not want him to walk out of that feeling bad. And honestly, we tipped the waiter what my meal would have cost, so it didn't affect him in any way. It's not his fault that the restaurant is skimping out on ingredient qualities, but moving on. So, why do people become people pleasers? I'm going to give you a few reasons, and if you struggle with people pleasing, I want you, hopefully, to feel a little bit of validation that you're not, if you struggle with people pleasing, just know you don't do this just for the fun of the game, right? Like, there's reasons why we become like this. There's things that we go through in our lives that condition us to behave a certain way. And part of tailoring your reality is becoming conscious of our own patterns and our own behaviors and how these things, like, I hear girls all the time kind of laugh it off like, oh, I'm just a people pleaser, like it's not a big deal. And it's like, no, honey, It's not okay. It's not a good thing to be afraid of conflict all the time, right? So, number one reason why people become people pleasers is fear of rejection or fear of conflict. Research in social psychology shows humans are wired for belonging. If someone grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, they may learn, if I keep everyone happy, I stay safe. But the truth is, you're not pizza. You're not going to be able to make everybody happy all the time. So it's a false sense of safety. Conflict feels threatening, even when it's minor. Number two, childhood conditioning. Attachment research suggests children who were overly responsible for adult emotions, praised mainly for being easy or good, or punished for expressing anger, often grow into adults who suppress their needs to maintain harmony. So, depending on your role in the family, how you were treated by your caregivers, if you were constantly treated like you're too much, you need to be easy, you need to make my life easier, you're going to learn my value is in being agreeable. Number three, low self worth and external validation. People pleasing can become identity based. If people are upset, it must be my fault. If they approve of me, I'm okay. Approval becomes a self esteem regulator. So you become a people pleaser because you're trying to get your self esteem from other people, or you derive your self esteem from other people. And I see this a lot with young people, especially like in the dating scene, like if this guy likes me, then I'm going to be okay. If he switches up on me and he stops texting me back, I must have done something. It must be on me. Number four, trauma response. Psychology recognizes fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So the parasympathetic nervous system's responses to threats. For people pleasing, I'm going to talk about fawning, which is appeasing to avoid threat. I am majorly guilty of this one, so absolutely no judgment here. I, in the past, when I was in situations where I didn't have the support that I needed, I just naturally started fawning. My nervous system responded by trying to make sure that everybody else is happy with how I'm um, approaching life. So it's not weakness, but it is conditioning, and that doesn't mean that we keep living in it. I have had to fawn for long periods of time in certain situations, and as soon as I got out of that situation, my nervous system started coming down, and it felt like suffering. So it's not exactly, people pleasing can absolutely cause neurological damage to your system. I've experienced it. It's no joke. So, what actually happens when you people please? Let's switch gears for a second. In my story of going to Olive Garden, what would have happened if we just paid for the food we didn't like, if we had taken it home, thrown it away, and left disappointment? It would have built even more resentment, right? Especially after the whole incident with the coffee. He was already walking in there feeling resentment. We would have just left feeling even more resentment. Who exactly would we have been protecting if we had not sent the food back and had it taken off our tab? Would it be the cooks? Would it be our waiter? Would it be each other? And from what? I think it's important to really think about these things because like I mentioned, people pleasing is preconditioned. If you learn to be a people pleaser in childhood, then you take that with you into adulthood and you start people pleasing towards people who don't even expect that from you. Likely our waiter couldn't care less what's going on. I mean, the bro didn't even shower. Like, I strongly doubt that he cares what happens at work. He's just there to get his check, to get his tips, and to go back home where he can play on his Xbox, right? That's likely what was happening. I strongly doubt that he cared at all that we sent the food back. It probably happens multiple times per shift, especially with the low quality ingredients that they were using. So, what exactly would we have been protecting him from? People pleasing just builds resentment, it creates burnout, it disconnects you from your own preferences, it trains people to expect self abandonment, and it leads to emotional exhaustion. I also believe people pleasing actually harms the people that you are trying to please. It's not, I think like so often when we just agree to everything and we're just overachieving, overcompensating, doing all of these things for everybody else, we don't think about how we're actually hurting that person. So I want to talk for a second about that. When you people please, you're literally denying the other person honest feedback. They might just keep going about doing that thing over and over and over, thinking it's fine because everybody's allowing it. They're making space for it. But when you clock them on it and you tell them, actually, no, like when you do this thing, it harms me, it upsets me, it hurts me, it irritates me, they might have no idea, right? By not being honest with people, you are actively preventing them from adjusting or growing to whatever the situation is. Say you get a brand new coworker and they're late to work every single day and it drives you crazy. And that coworker keeps coming by, wanting to chit chat with you, trying to build a relationship with you, and they have no idea that you're irritated as hell that they're coming to work late every day, right? Sometimes you gotta tell somebody, hey, this drives me crazy. This bothers me. I don't like that about you. Be honest with them. Not being honest with people and just continuing to give in, you're not being authentic. You're showing up inauthentically, and in some cases, you may be creating subtle codependency. Because the hard truth is this: people can't know you if you're constantly performing. I'm going to say that again. People cannot know you if you are constantly performing. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, especially those of you that grew up in environments where you had to perform for safety. It's so hard. But when you're constantly performing all the time, this version of you that's not even you, you are creating a life around a person that's not even real. You're creating and cultivating a life out of a version of you that's not actually you. Believe me, like I said, I've been there. I spent all of last year coming out of that parasympathetic response of fawning, and it was really hard. So I worked in ministry for about 9 months, and during that time period, now this was kind of a firehouse ministry. I lived on site, like I absolutely gave up everything to do this, and I really felt called to do it, but I don't think I quite realized how much damage it was going to do to me. It was my first time ever doing ministry, let alone working in it as my profession. And during those 9 months, I was available 24/7 because if there was an emergency or anything went down, I'm the one that they were going to call, and like I had to be accessible. There was really nobody else for them to access, right? I'm the one that's there all the time. I showed up for everybody. I showed up for my pastor, I showed up for the church leaders, I showed up for the community, I showed up for the women that I was serving. I showed up for the volunteers. I mean, I everybody was like looking up to me and wanting my time and my energy and to be in my space. I said yes constantly. Anytime there was an event going on at the church, anytime somebody needed a ride or needed help with something, like I just said yes, even if I didn't want to, because I was constantly thinking about everybody else. Like, oh, I can do this, I'm capable, so I should do this. I ignored my own capacity. I mean, there are nights when I would finally go to my bedroom, finally kind of get away from everybody, and then my husband would be there. and he'd be wanting to talk to me. And I really had no energy left for those conversations, but I love him. And I didn't want to tell him, like, hey, I'm maxed out right now. I'm fully at capacity. In fact, even the women that I was serving in the ministry, I didn't want to tell them that. I didn't want to make them feel bad. They'd be going off telling me these horribly traumatic stories, and I'm already fried. And instead of just interrupting them and saying, hey, what you went through is valid. And I don't want to make you feel like I'm not a safe person to talk to, but that's some really heavy stuff. You should seek counseling for that. And if you're not comfortable seeking counseling, I can respect that, but I am not the person to talk to about this. That's a lot for me to hear. I didn't do that. I had no idea. I didn't even have language to do that, right? I was burnt out, and every time that I reached out to my support system, every time that I reached out to the people around me and started being honest, started asking them, hey, I need help. Can you come show up? Can you do this? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Instead of showing up for me, they managed my perspective. They started gaslighting me and making themselves unavailable. That support wasn't there. And so this is what pushed me into the people pleasing. Because when I didn't say yes, I could see how I was quietly being punished and managed back into this role of saying yes. I'm not trying to come off like I'm bitter, but that whole experience was very misaligned. Saying yes when you do not have the capacity is not generosity, it is self betrayal. And I really had to learn that because when I walked out of that ministry, I mean, my hair fell out. I finally could see my face again, like clearly see myself, and I had bags under my eyes. I wasn't healthy. My nervous system was shot. I was in pain all the time. I I absolutely betrayed myself. And it taught me a hard lesson about people pleasing. People will accept what you offer, even if it costs you. And I had to learn that I I'm not willing to pay the cost of showing up and doing everything for everybody else when I need help, when I'm down, who's showing up for me? And that's not to say that, it goes back to what I was saying about kindness and like self-abandonment, right? Or fear. Kindness versus fear. Show up for people and help people because it's kind, because you want to be kind, because you want to help that person, because it's going to make you feel good. Not because you're afraid of what'll happen if you don't say yes. And that's kind of where I had landed myself at in ministry, is I was afraid to say no. I felt like my entire life was dependent on these people. I was living with them. I was getting paid to be there. My whole reputation was on this. I was afraid to say no. But I learned my lesson. So through all of these moments, like even now, I'm at the point where at the Olive Garden, I can just be like, yes, take it back. I don't want it. Take it off my tab, right? I've learned that discomfort is not necessarily danger. Someone else being mildly uncomfortable will not destroy me. I'm not responsible for regulating everybody else's emotions, especially not grown people, right? Like, I'm sorry, you're an adult. It's your responsibility to regulate yourself. You cannot be honest. I'm sorry, you can be honest without being cruel. Honesty doesn't have to. I mean, and I even told the waiter, like, hey, this isn't a reflection of you. It's just not good. I said that in front of my husband because I was trying to make a point, and my husband got the message. If anything, he was really grateful and he thanked me for doing that. He didn't feel demasculated by the situation. He wasn't offended or hurt. And we still, like I said, tipped the guy. We weren't being cruel. We were just being honest. This is gross. I don't like it. Even if the guy was offended afterwards, maybe he goes back and tells the chef, hey, this got sent back. It was kind of gross. And they realize, oh, maybe we should have cooked it a little bit longer or whatever. People, they are never pleased, right? People are never pleased. So why do we exhaust ourselves trying? After everything that I went through in the 30 years I had been alive, I finally got to this point in my life now in 2026 where I'm realizing I would rather be honest than liked. I would rather be respected than liked. I would rather cultivate a life where people know, hey, that one over there, she's going to tell you the truth. Because I trust people that are honest. I trust people that will tell me what it is, especially if they can do it with kindness. And that's kind of another thing. Like, when you come out of being a people pleaser, those of you who are like really resonating and you're like, preach, sister, I feel you. When you when you come out of being a people pleaser, it doesn't mean that you have to be mean now. The pendulum doesn't have to swing all the way to the other side. So let's talk about it. How do we start retiring from people pleasing? Pause before automatically saying yes. Okay? When someone comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to go do blah, blah, blah with me? Don't just automatically go, mm hmm. Think about it for a second. Do I want to? If you don't actually like that person, you're not really feeling it, or maybe you just have plans, maybe you're just tired, maybe it's just not a good time for you, you can say no. Practice small honesty. No, I don't really want to take a walk right now. Maybe I'm just not dressed for it, and I don't want to ruin my new shoes. Maybe the other person responds and goes, oh, well, that's a bummer. Okay, let them feel their feelings. It's okay to just not respond in that moment and just allow that person to stand there and be like, man, well, that's a bummer. Separate discomfort from danger. Well, I was looking forward to taking that walk, but you're right. Those are some pretty great shoes. And allow the person to just kind of fizzle out. Because the truth is, we're not always in danger. Our nervous system can't tell the difference until you learn and you go through these experiences and you respond differently and you allow your brain to create new neural pathways and you get wiser and you practice it over and over, you're going to feel uncomfortable. And that's just part of the process. So ask yourself, what do I actually want right now? You don't have to be abrasive. You just have to be honest with yourself. What do I actually want? I don't have to accept every single thing that's presented to me. I don't have to always say yes. I can say no. I can wait for another opportunity. I can turn down hanging out with that friend. I can buy this thing that I really want and I don't have to apologize for it. I can allow people around me to learn, to grow, to experience their emotions. I don't always have to be the one to jump up and fix it, okay? My coworker's having a hard time finding a way to the airport. I don't want to drive her to the airport. I don't want to drive her to the airport. So, so I don't need to be volunteered for that. I don't need to jump up and say yes. If I'm not doing it out of kindness and I'm just doing it out of obligation, am I really doing that person any favors? No. No, you're not. And that's a hard pill for us people pleasers to really swallow, isn't it? When you say yes all the time and you just agree to everything all the time just to be liked, just to be picked, are you really doing anybody any favors? Because at the end of the day, nobody knows the real you. And we're going to change that. So, my listeners out there, I have a couple questions for you to kind of end this episode. You don't have to you can comment these below if you want. You're more than welcome to. Use my comment section, please. If you want a space to kind of get this out, feel free, but you don't have to. I just want you to listen to yourself and really think about what comes up to the surface when I ask you these questions. Where are you saying yes, but wanting to say no? What are you protecting? And who taught you that your comfort mattered less? Mm, yeah. I'm not here to be pleasing. I'm here to be real. And I promise you can be too. Thanks for listening this week, guys. And I am just so glad that you're here.